Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. Today we continue our series on header and navigation masterclass. We're going to build a header that hides when you scroll down and shows up when you scroll up. As you may already know, there's a popular JavaScript framework called headroom.js typically used for this effect. There are lots of videos on how to implement headroom.js on your website, but in this video we're going to see a simple alternative way with just a few lines of CSS and JS without the need to add a JavaScript framework to your website. So let's begin. First of all, we're going to add a simple header. So I'm just going to add a section. Okay, let me move that to the top, and then I'm going to change the tag to header. Very important. And then I'm going to add a div inside that section. First of all, I want to rename this to header. I like doing that as a habit. Okay. And then I'm going to give it a class of header, but since we already have a class of header here, I'm just going to give it header 2. Okay, and then I'm going to call this header row. Okay, all right, I'm just going to copy that so I can use it as a class and give it a class of header row. All right. Okay, I think we already had that class of header row, so I'm just going to call it header 2 row. All right, so I'm just going to add, for the header, I want to take off the default padding, so I'm going to do that on the ID. For some reason, it works better on the ID because I want to use the header row for all the paddings. I'm going to make it 100% width. Okay, for this, I'm just gonna stack it, center that, and for this, I'm gonna stack the children horizontally, place them in the middle like that. Okay, I'm gonna drop a menu inside the header row, and then I'm gonna select one of my menu. All right. Okay, I need the menu to move all the way to the right. Okay, so I'm gonna give it a left padding of a left margin of auto. Okay, now that's on the header row. Let's return that, select the menu, and then size and spacing, margin left auto. I'm gonna give add an image we're gonna use for a logo, and that image is gonna be right there. I'm gonna select that, and I'm gonna set that to 70. Okay, so we have our logo. I'm just gonna go ahead and just clear off this default styling because I hate it, and then I'm gonna set the hover text color to something like that. All right, maybe darker. Okay, all right, so we're done with a little bit of styling for our header. So the next thing we're gonna do is, I think I like some padding up and bottom of the logo. Okay, so I'm gonna select the header row and just give it a top and bottom padding. Okay, of let's say 0.5 rem. Okay, same here. All right, 0.5 rem. I think that works. I'm gonna save that, and then to bring in the effect that we're looking for when we scroll, we want to hide the header. Okay, when we scroll down, when we begin to scroll up, we want to show the header. I'm going to add a code block. Yeah, I just want to move that code block outside here. And then the first is going to set the initial CSS for our header. So I'm just going to say header 2. Okay. First, I want the position to be fixed. That's the first thing you want to do. And then you want to set the top. Now we could do this. Okay, we could do this inside the settings all here, but the reason I chose to do everything here is because we're going to write CSS for the header, so I want everything to remain together. So instead of having to move into style sheet to see some things and going to the settings to see some things, I want everything to remain. In fact, you know what, for what we want to do, let's use the builder since we're using Oxygen. Okay, let's limit the code. So I'm going to the header 2. Okay, advanced layout. The position is going to be fixed. Okay, top 0, left 0. Okay, and that's cool. Let me quickly go into the code block and then, comment that out. Let's go back to our header. Okay, we want to set the transition, we want to set the transition duration to a default of 0.4 seconds. Okay, and then we want the timing function to be ease in, out. Okay, I think I like to bump up that transition to 0.6. And then we want to define the transition property. So we want to do transform, comma. We want to do height, just in case we need the height. And then we want to do a background color in case we need to change the background color. Then we don't want to delay. Okay, so it is important to define the properties you're going to be transiting. Okay, because it helps in performance. So the next thing we're going to do is to add the JavaScript for our for the effect we want, the scroll up to reveal and hide effect. So I'm going to create a constant body, which will be equals document.body. Okay, and scroll up, the scroll up variable will be equals to a string. This string is what we're going to use as our class, so that's why I want it to be a string, comma, and then the scroll down will be also a string, which we're going to use to inject in the class. All right, close that, and then we say we're going to define another variable, scroll. Last scroll will be 0. That's just a variable we're going to be using, and then we want to check, okay, for scroll action. Okay, for that let's wrap all this in a Windows document loaded function. Okay, add event listener. So add event listener, so we want to say DOM DOM content loaded. Okay, and then we want to do that. Okay, so we want to take all this inside, so we don't want this to run inside we don't want this to run inside the builder while we're working. Okay, so now we want to add an event listener, window.add event listener. Okay, we want to listen for a scroll, and then now we want to listen for a scroll. The first thing we want to do is to hide. So we want to write a code for hide and reveal header. Okay, so we want to create a constant called current scroll, and we're going to set that constant to the windows.page y offset. This is a standard property of the page, that is the distance that the page scrolls. Okay, now if we go to the front end and then you go to the console, okay, if you write window, if you write window page y offset, you see it's a standard property. Now you see it's 0 now, but if I scroll up and then do that again, you see it's now 300. So if I keep scrolling and then you see 600. So each time you scroll, you see it keeps increasing. If I go all the way back, it's now 0. So that is the offset, the distance in which the window is scrolling. So that is what the page y offset stands for. Okay, so we're going to create a condition if current scroll, okay, is less than or equal to, let's use a value of say 200 pixels. Okay, now we want to write something and say we want to remove a class, assuming the body already has a class of scroll up. Okay, remember this scroll up here is what we pass here, is actually passing this string. Okay, now return. Okay, So what we're basically saying here is if the current scroll is less than, okay, or equal to 200, if there's any class called scroll up, okay, we want to remove that class. All right, now because we're going to introduce that class, okay, so the next thing we're going to say is if current scroll, okay, is greater than last scroll. Okay, so remember we set a last scroll to 0. So when we move and it is greater than last scroll, okay, and the body does not contain the class of scroll down, okay, so body.classList dot contains scroll. So if the body does not contain a class called scroll down, okay, what we're going to do is to now that we are scrolling down, okay, we're scrolling down, so we're going to add body.classList, okay, we're going to say remove the class of scroll up, okay, and add the class of scroll down. So we're saying if this happens, if the current scroll is greater than the last scroll and the body does not contain a class of scroll down, so go there and remove the scroll up class if it is there, okay, and then we're going to add the scroll down class. Else if, now let's just give it a space there. Now else if the current scroll, okay, is less than last scroll, as we're beginning to scroll up now, okay, and body.classList dot contains, now the body has the class of scroll down, okay, in this case if the body has a class of scroll down, so what we want to do is now we're going up, okay, now we're going up, so since we're going up we're going to remove the class list of scroll down, okay, we're going to remove the class of scroll down and we're going to add the class of scroll up. All right, so that's basically it. And then once we're done with that, we want to set the last scroll for us to have that effect at any point in time, wherever anytime we return the header begins to show again, we have to set the last scroll to the current scroll, which is the current value of the page Y. So everything starts recalculating based on what we set this last scroll to. Okay, I think that's basically all the JavaScript we will need. So we are ending that scroll action there. All right, so we end scroll action. Okay, let's apply that code. Hopefully there's no error. I'm going to save this. Now we're going to check the front end and see if what we're doing is working so far. Okay, now we see that our header is now fixed, okay, but we don't have a header background. So I'm going to go back to the header. We're going to give it a background color of white. Okay, save that. Let's refresh. So we have a header. Now if we scroll, of course, nothing happens because we haven't said that anything should happen to the header. All we did was add classes to the body. So we're going to go to the body to ensure that those classes are being added. Okay, now I'm going to scroll down. You see, scroll down class is added. When I begin to scroll up, the scroll down class is removed and the scroll up class is added. But if I go all the way up, all those classes are removed. So now we're going to use those classes to target the header and do something with it. Okay, so we have a header class called header2. So we're going to go back to the code block and then we're going to go to the CSS. Now I want to warn that if you're writing certain CSS, you might want to don't want to put them in the code block. Sometimes you want to put them in, you know, the style sheet, because the CSS from the style sheet loads first. Okay, this is to avoid problems like you know, CLS, cumulative layout shifts, and you know, some other stuff like that when the page loads. Okay, now we want to add we want to use the classes that we've added to the bottom, which is scroll down. Okay, and we're going to target the header. So when we scroll down, what do we want? And we want the header to hide, right? Okay, so we want to transform, okay, by translating the header, the y-axis, we want to translate it a -100%. Okay, that is what we want to do. So when we scroll down, we want the header to translate. Okay, so let's see that. So now once the scroll down class is added, okay, nothing is happening. Okay, yeah, because it was header 2. Okay, right, so just remember it's header 2. All right, let's refresh again. Okay, so once that is added, the header scrolls, you see. So but then if we go all the way here, you see it returns. Okay, it returns, but we still want to, now it returns by itself. Okay, now but we still need to define it, because we could use that scroll up class. So scroll up dot header 2. Okay, we want to reset that. Now it does by default, because once you scroll up, it takes away that scroll down class and you have the scroll up class. So now that seems to be sufficient for what we want. Okay, so it works for the most part, but we still need to define it. Okay, so I'm just going to take that CSS and put there and take this back to 0. Okay, all right, so it's still going to be the same result, but the difference is that with this class you can do more with the header. Okay, so now just imagine, now I'm scrolling. Okay, by the time I scroll up, so you can see my header. Okay, now let's assume that I wanted my logo to be smaller. Okay, when I'm scrolling up until I get to the, you know, I get back all the way up before the logo returns to its normal size. Okay, so I could just give my logo a class. Okay, so I could just say I already have a class of logo, so I'm just going to call this logo 2. Okay, so now if I go to the code block and say scroll up dot logo 2 width, so I want to take it to 50 pixels. Right now what's the default size of the logo? Logo is, did we give it a width? Yes, it was 70, so we want to take that off from the ID and put it on the class. Okay, our header is hidden, so I just want to give it a z index of, let's say 1. Okay, that should come up now. So we have a logo, it's 70 pixels. Okay, and want to add a transition to the logo. Okay, so I'm going to go to effect, transition. Okay, want to give it let's say 0.4. Okay, and want to try and do the timing function, sorry, is in out, and the property we want to do for the width only. Okay, so I'm going to go back to that. So we're setting, now when we're scrolling up, we want it to be 50 pixels, so that, you know, the size of the header will reduce. So I'm going to refresh this now. So by the time I come back, you see we have a smaller header because we have a smaller logo. Okay, and we could do the same here. Okay, we could reduce these padding. So the top padding, if we reduce the top padding to say 5 or 6, and the bottom to say 6, so you can see we can further reduce our header. You see what is happening there? When we come back there, the logo is bigger. Okay, so we come back and then the logo is bigger. So now I want to take the whole of this selector. Okay, so I'm going to copy selector, and then I'm going to go back there, and then I want to also say scroll up. Then I'm going to add that selector. Now what we are reducing is padding top. Okay, so we want the padding top to be 6 pixels. Okay, and then we want the padding bottom to be 6 pixel. All right, of course we want to set a transition to that item. I'll copy that out. Okay, let's just copy this out. You need it, we want it to be smooth. Okay, so I'm going to just set a transition for this, and then I'm just going to say transition, so make it 0.4 seconds. Okay, and the transition property is going to be the padding. Okay, so transition padding, we'll do that, and then let's take a look at what happens there. So by the time we're coming up, you see the header is smaller. By the time we go, you see it becomes bigger, like that. See, becomes bigger. So you could do that so that you can use that to change the color of your header. Okay, while you're scrolling down and while you're scrolling up. So we could even do the same thing here. We could just copy this and just say comma and say even while we're scrolling down, we want that to happen, and we can do the same thing here. Okay, so we could use this scroll up and scroll down class to do a lot of things to anything on the body. Okay, so it just opens a whole new possibility. So now if I scroll down, you see it's going to reduce as it's going upwards, and then it stays small and then becomes big. So even if, let's say, we want to change anything on the page, okay, as we are scrolling up or scrolling down, we can add that class before any selector and change anything. Now, the next thing we want to do is know that we did this, we start this as a fixed header, and the body, is right under it. So what we want to do is to give the body a padding top, okay, of, let's say, maybe let's try 5 rem. Okay, so we want to see what works. Let's give a background of, say, a yellow, so we would see what is going on. Okay, so I want to see. All right, so 6 rem, still some things are still flowing out. 5 rem is it. 5 rem is good. So we want to offset that body. Okay, 5 rem. All right, so I just want to copy that declaration. So we just want to add that. Now this particular CSS, this body CSS is very important. You drop it as critical CSS. Get a plugin that will load this in the header, because if you don't, as you refresh your page, you're gonna have certain issues where the body, you have this slight jerk as the body loads. Okay, so you want to add that in some cases. So we have that, and then we're done. I mean, this is cool. Okay, so sometimes I like adding some more effects. Okay, so I could say this menu items air. Okay, on scroll down, I want to change the color, okay, to, let's say, white. Okay, and then I want to change the color of the header, to so let's say black. Okay, so when we're scrolling down, I want the color, the background color, okay, but the color of the text, the menu, to be you see what is going on there? So now we want to extend that to the scroll up. Okay, and then yeah, so now when I scroll down, see, my logo can be, my header can be black. Okay, and then by the time I'm done, everything comes back to normal. So there's so much possibility, so much you can do. You can even reduce the font size here. Okay, so I could reduce the font size to, say, maybe 14 pixels. Okay, I believe that's more than 14 pixels. So let's see. So it's okay. Then it can be bigger. Okay. It's so the transition property. It's supposed to for this we set padding. So I'm just gonna take that out. Okay. Transition is 4 seconds, and then I'm gonna add a padding. Sorry, I'm gonna add a transition property. Okay, of padding, and then font size, and then color. Okay, so you could add multiple transition properties like that. Okay, and let's do that. I'm gonna refresh so everything will be smooth. So you see everything is very smooth. Okay, so that's it. So you can actually go into the JavaScript and change the scroll distance. Okay, so you want this to scroll up to 600 before that effect takes in, okay, or kicks in. You can refresh that. Let me close this. So I can scroll, I have to scroll all the way to 600 pixels before that happens. Okay, so by the time I get back to close to 600 pixels, everything comes back to normal. So you can change a bit. If you want it to happen immediately, you scroll, okay, which personally I don't like. I prefer keeping it at 200. Okay, so you could do that. Immediately you scroll, it happens. Okay, now see, the problem there is that at that point the body is almost coming out for you to see before this happens. This gets back to normal. So that's why I like giving it that offset at least 80. Okay, but I like keeping it at 200, and that works fine. So with 200, everything looks great, you know. So this already comes out, you know, before the body has the opportunity to show up. It's still showing up. All right. Okay, so you could adjust it. Okay, if you want it to come out on time, maybe 400. So it depends on what you want to do. Let's not waste time here, but we are done with this. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share these videos with others. Okay, and I hope you learned something. In the next part, we're going to look at how to create a custom mobile menu. Okay, something really cool, something that something like this. Yep, something like that. So you can create a nice custom menu. Okay, custom mobile menu like that. All right. All right, so that's it. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Take care.